Hello and welcome to another round of Championship predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. I'm Craig Savage. With me, as always, is Mr. Daniel Cody. Let's have a quick recap of what happened at the weekend. And there were two perfect scores overall, one for each side. Mine was the 1-1 draw of Bristol City versus Peterborough, and Daniel Cody's was the Forest 2, Birmingham 0. I would have had an extra 3 points, but Andre Gray decided to score a penalty in the 98th minute. We both ended up level for once. It's for a rare one. Ended 6-6. So let's get on. It's the Good Friday edition of the Championship, and we start off with the early game. It is Luton Town. The first is Nottingham Forest. Luton Town lost 2-0 away at Huddersfield. You went to that. But Nottingham Forest also won 2-0 at home to Birmingham. So we won't talk about your whole Huddersfield experience because we'll save that for the ramble because we've had some fantastic messages in the WhatsApp group between me, you, and Charlie. But we'll get on to the game. Luton didn't deserve to win. The penalty miss could have changed the game. Poor defensive goals and more injuries.
It was actually a pretty poor game, wasn't it? Let's be brutally honest. The first half was very cautious and
very wet.
Very wet as well. Yes, the hailstorm on the way there was lovely. And ultimately, it just came down to a couple of moments switching off. So the first goal came immediately after a sub in the back three. And from that side, that's where the goal came from. It was just one of those little frustrating moments. And it is maybe the difference over the course of the season between Forest, the opponents on Friday, Huddersfield, the opponents from Monday, and maybe the likes of Luton and maybe QPR, and that is that we've always got that chance of conceding a silly goal. We do switch off at the back occasionally. Forest are the absolute opposite of that. Back-to-back clean sheets, back-to-back comprehensive 2-0 wins. We've mentioned it for weeks now. They look like an unstoppable force. I'm really worried about this game because we keep picking up injuries. We're losing a lot of pace out of the team with the injuries that we're picking up as well. And that gives me grave concern coming up against a side like Forest. I'm torn between the bias of Luton, which I'm sure you'll provide in a moment, and my bias of actually, from a neutral point of view, the story of Forest, who are brilliant to watch, catching Bournemouth and being second. I have to go with heads. I think Forest win, and I think Forest win comfortably. And I'd say that for any game Forest are involved in now. I'm going to go big. I'm going to go 3-0. And then Luton need to win the 3 games against the sides with nothing to play for.
Let's get on to Forest. Forest have obviously played well. They're looking easily the second best team in the league at the moment. Keenan Davis scoring against his rivals. It's clear he's a Villa boy. He's just on loan, but went down very well in the Birmingham ends. Looking at the videos on Twitter. So yeah, looking strong again. They're looking far too strong at the moment. Unbeaten in 10, 7-0 or wins. So it's looking good for them. Luton, on the other hand, yeah, it was frustrating. The penalty
summed up the night, didn't it?
I think it did. I think you knew when Pelly went down injured, you could tell it's just not going to go your way. It just wasn't a night. Poor, not switched on to both basically the corner and the throw. Obviously, yeah, the last week was not ideal. 2 points out of 9 is not ideal, but it's still in our hands. We still got a chance. I think Forest will win this game by 2-1. It'll be a late winner. Right, next up, it's the team that Forest beat. Birmingham City, they're at home to Coventry. Birmingham obviously lost 2-0 to Forest. And Coventry, a very good 3-1 away victory over Fulham. They've done the double over them.
Yeah, it was a fantastic performance. And it was only in the last episode of this, before that game, where we were talking about Coventry being one of those sides that had dipped out of form. And obviously they'd struggled against some of the top sides, beaten by Forest comfortably the week before. It was a brilliant performance. Obviously, you've got the first season where these two are playing each other for ages, where there's not the tenants v owners of the stadium situation going on, but it is a return to St Andrews for Coventry. Birmingham really missed Lyle Taylor against Forest, obviously couldn't play because he was on loan. And again, look, you can't judge them on playing one of the strongest teams in the league. They kept 3 clean sheets in 4 before that. And as a result, I actually think this is going to be a really low scoring, pretty drab affair. Coventry aren't out of it yet if they win this game. And Coventry are the masters of late goals. We all know that. So I'm flitting between a dull 0-0 and a 1-0 Coventry win late on. And I don't know which to go for. Let's go for the romantics. Let's make things interesting. 1-0 Coventry, post 85 minutes.
Yeah, that was a very good performance. Done well on the set pieces, kind of blocked them off. Really pounced on their Fulham's trying to play out from the back. And I know I've moaned about Swansea playing out from the back and it got caught. This time Fulham got caught on it. So well done to Coventry. A very good away victory in the capital. Birmingham, yeah, it was always going to be tough. Losing Neil Etheridge as well to concussion. Obviously, we wish him a speedy recovery. It looked awful. Obviously, they're clearly safe. Hopefully, they can have to do some wheeling dealing business in the summer because they ain't got that much money. But I'm going to go Coventry to win by 2-0. Right, next up, it is Bournemouth versus Middlesbrough, two teams in that automatic promotion and playoff hunt. Bournemouth drew 0-0 with Sheffield United and Middlesbrough lost 1-0 to Hull.
Yeah, that was the surprise, wasn't it? Because I know, take the Fulham game, the midweek aside, Middlesbrough until that performance had been pretty much invincible at home under Chris Wilder. Certainly the last 3 or 4 months, you wouldn't bank against them. The Fulham one was understandable. The Hull one, bit of a surprise. Goalkeeper didn't cover himself in glory at all. It wasn't the best effort of saving it, to be brutally honest. And Bournemouth were incredibly fortunate because how Sheffield United didn't get a penalty late on in that game, I will never, ever know. It was an atrociously clumsy challenge from Nathaniel Phillips. It was awful. So I've no idea how there wasn't a penalty there. But those are the decisions that ultimately become crucial at this stage. Bournemouth have got Forest breathing down their neck. If Forest do win the 12:30 game, as I've predicted, then there's going to be a lot of tension around this. Borough need to get a win to get back in that playoff mix. But ultimately, I think they cancel each other out because both sides, I think, will be more afraid to lose than they will want to win the game. Borough haven't got the best away record anyway, so I'm frigging out my first Championship's favourite scoreline. But don't be shocked if this is 0-0.
Yeah, this one's a tough one to call. Obviously, Bournemouth fans are starting to panic again. To be honest, you could probably say it's a good point considering the circumstances because Sheffield are bad and really, and Travers was unreal in goal and got away with a penalty, which all season really, its standard has not really been good enough. Borough, lost 2 home games in a row. Haven't scored in those 2 home games as well. Obviously losing to Fulham in midweek. Oh, this is a really tough one to call because there's not many goals in this. I'm going to go against the script. I'm going to go 1-0 to Middlesbrough. Right, next up, it's Hull versus Cardiff. Hull obviously beat Middlesbrough by a goal to 0, and Cardiff bounced back from that humiliating Derby defeat with a 2-1 away win at Reading.
Yeah, big comeback as well, because 1 down after what had happened against Swansea, you could have seen it easily going the other way. So you have to give Cardiff credit. Hull, look, they won it on a goal that should never have got to the back of the net, but they held Middlesbrough, they contained them pretty well. And after a couple of home defeats in a row, that was pretty important for them. And you've got to be fair, Hull have now become a better side away from home than at home. They've actually got the worst home record in the division now, given Peterborough's recent results. So you could argue they're going to be underdogs as a result of being back at the MKM. They keep clean sheets on the road. At home, they seem to be shipping goals at the minute, though they have been down to 10 men in a couple of their last 3. Cardiff are much better on the road. They're actually 9th best team away from home in terms of record this season, and that's with a game in hand away from home. So I think that gives Cardiff the edge. There will be goals because neither side's got a great defensive record, particularly Cardiff. If I'm going for a Cardiff win, it's not with a clean sheet. So I might go same score again, but I'll add one more. 3-1 Cardiff. Doesn't happen often. They don't really score 3 goals. But I feel like Hull, the way they play out from the back, could potentially play into Cardiff's hands a little.
Good win for Hull, good win for Cardiff. Clean sheet for Hull as well. I think that's very important considering the goals they have been shipping, as you said, against Luton and then the Huddersfield one. Cardiff, on the other hand, good bounce back as well from them. But I don't think much of this game will be good. So I'm going to go Championship's favourite scoreline for the first time of 1-1. Right, next up, it's Peterborough versus Blackburn. Peterborough drew with Bristol City and Blackburn drew with Blackpool. 2 draws in a row now. 2 games they've had to come from behind Peterborough. It's still, I think they need to convert into wins, but at the end of the day, they did have to come from 10 men.
Yeah, they did well to get a point with 10 men. They showed good fighting spirit, as they did late on against Luton, but I think it's done now, isn't it? 9 points behind, basically 10 with the goal difference, which is the difference between them and Derby and Barnsley. And I just think with Reading picking up points, it's going to be too much for them now. They are a little bit better at home, as we've mentioned, but they've only won 6 games all season, and it's just not enough. Blackburn, good goal from Sam Gallagher. It could be an important point because despite their pretty woeful form in 2022, they're still 7th and only 2 points off the playoffs. Nobody wants to be there. The points totals are very low. I'm not sure where to go with this game because Blackburn did look a bit better going forward with some of those star attacking players coming back. You mentioned Bradley back the other week. Ben Brereton Diaz looked a lot sharper at the weekend. I have to go for a Blackburn win. It's now or never for both sides in their respective battles. I know Blackburn have been rubbish away from home, but I'm going to edge them 2-1 because Peterborough just concede too many goals.
I'm going 1-0 Peterborough. Peterborough, yeah, to be fair, like the heart's in there. They haven't got the quality, but they've got a good point against Luton. And you can say it is a good point against Bristol City, but they've run out of time, I think, for Peterborough. But I think they can still put up a fight. I think they can win this 1-0. I really do. Right, next up, Preston versus Millwall. Preston beat QPR by 2-1, and Millwall hammered Barnsley by 4-1.
Yeah, some good goals there. McNamara breaking his duck and then getting 2 in a few moments. Preston, a good win against QPR. We'll get to them later. There were some mitigating circumstances with that, but it is back-to-back home wins. They won the derby the midweek before as well. And they are pretty strong at home. They've only lost 3 games all season at home, but far too many draws, far too many games where they're not able to break the deadlock. And we know when they're at their best how resolute Millwall can be defensively. The issue is the last 4 games, they haven't kept a clean sheet and have let in 6 goals. So which way do I go with it? Again, Millwall, another one of those sides that really need the win to keep pace. I'm going to sit on the fence and go draw again. I'm very sorry, but it's another Championship's favourite scoreline for me, and I'm sure you would have gone for that if I hadn't.
I'm gonna say Millwall to sneak it by 2-1. They're back in this race now. It closes the gap up. You said it gives them a chance. Preston, after 2 good home wins, obviously they're fine at the moment. I've got no problem with them. They're looking a lot better, a lot stronger. Cameron Archer's been a blessing for them, but I just think Millwall might have it. Shade it on the day. Late winner for them, 2-1 to Millwall. Right, next up, Sheffield United versus Reading at Bramall Lane. Sheffield United drew 0-0 with Bournemouth, and Reading lost 2-1 to Cardiff. Sheffield United, it was a 2 points dropped moment for them, and Reading was pretty much a 3 points drop because they did have that 1-0 lead.
Yeah, and they'll be very pleased to have seen the results below with none of the bottom 3 winning. Look, we've said all season defensively they're not good enough, but they're showing fighting spirit now. They've not been out of a game for a long time, which is very important. And obviously, we've got to mention the fact that it looks like Paul Ince has been offered the job on a longer-term basis. And look, we were very doubtful, but you can't discredit the job he's done so far because he has shored them up. So it'll be interesting to see how the summer goes there. Sheffield United, I mentioned it. Yes, it's 2 points dropped. They met, as you mentioned earlier, Mark Travers on an inspired day for Bournemouth, made a couple of unbelievable saves. I keep going on about it, but it is one of the worst missed penalty decisions I've seen all season because it's front on for the linesman. It's perfect view, 10 yards away for the referee. And it wasn't just a clip or something. It was a full-on swipe to clear the ball and took the man out at chest height. I don't get it. And look how crucial it could be because from 5th down to 9th, as you mentioned, Millwall the only side who won. And getting 3 points there, that would have put them up to 5th level on points with Forest in 4th. And that's a huge difference at this stage of the season. I've got to go for a Sheffield United win. They've been solid at home this season. They've won 11 of their 20 games. They've conceded the least goals at home of any team all season. And that's backed up by 3 clean sheets in a row at home too. Comprehensive 2-0 win. Reading, I think the job is just about done.
I'm going to go 3-1 Sheffield United. I know you said the clean sheets have been vital for them, but yeah, I think there'd be a late consolation for Reading. Sheffield United to be convincing when if they take their chances, they should take their chances against the Reading side that defensively have improved, but still one of the worst in the division. So yeah, 3-1 Sheffield United win for me. Right, next up is a team who also won 3-1. It's Stoke City. They won 3-1 at West Brom, and Bristol City. They're playing Bristol City. Bristol City drew 1-0 with Peterborough. Good away win for Stoke. Bristol City, another bore draw at home. Nigel Pearson is calling for changes.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it very early in the season about the fact that he wasn't backed as much as previous managers to make changes to the squad. The out list was a lot longer than the in list last summer. And look, we know that they've potentially got more financial problems ahead. They've talked about financial fair play and their potential concerns with it moving forward. So it could be a very long summer for Bristol City. And Nigel Pearson, ultimately, he's kept them up very comfortably despite that. So there's got to be a little bit of credit, even though defensively they've been absolutely woeful. And again, Last 4 games, they've let in 8 goals. They've played Barnsley, they've played Peterborough, and they've played struggling West Brom at that time. It's not good enough. Stoke, finding form again. Don't know why, don't know where from. Probably because there's nothing to play for now, which, again, is a little bit pointless at this stage. The one thing I will say for Michael O'Neill is the players that he is recruiting are making a difference. Lewis Baker was fantastic again, and I would imagine he's going to be someone they look to build a team around next year. They've got a few younger players coming back and finding fitness, so there are positives for Stoke, but the overhaul will continue this summer, I'm sure. At home, Stoke have been a real mixed bag. 9 wins, 7 defeats. You don't know which way to go with it. Bristol City on the road have been atrocious, letting 45 goals and lost 13 of their 20 games. So I've got to go Stoke. Oh, I don't even know what score to pluck out. 2-1, because I still think it'll be tight, and both sides I was bank on to concede.
I'm going to go 2-0 Stoke. Stoke will be a lot stronger than Bristol City. For me, with Stoke at the moment, it seems to be one player's turning up for Stoke, and that's Lewis Baker. Bristol City, I can't speak anymore about Bristol City. Poor 1-1 draw. They had the extra man, and they conceded straight not long after they had that extra man. So once again, another disappointing result for them. So for me, 2-0 to Stoke. Right, next up, it's Swansea versus Barnsley. Swansea beat Derby by 2-1, and Barnsley got hammered 4-1 at Millwall. Swansea, they've got a bit of form now, so good for them. Barnsley, another defeat. Big gap now. Is it over with 5 games to go?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Look, I know they've got a game in hand, but they've now got
6 games to go. So I'd take that
they've
back.
They've got the game in hand, but they've got an equal goal difference to Reading now, which was one of their pluses before. And after that little push under Poya, I think ultimately, Craig, if we go back to it, those games where they conceded late goals has cost them. The Stoke draw at home in particular, not managing to clip Reading when they drew 1-1 with them, and even the 1-1 against Fulham to an extent, all games that have then cost them. If they picked up even 2 wins out of those, we'd be talking about a very different story now. Swansea, as you mentioned, have found form. I don't want to play too much devil's advocate. They've not got the worst running. They've got a game in hand. If they win that, they're 5 points off the playoffs with 5 to go. And it would be just about the most remarkable story of the season if Swansea somehow got near that promotion push. But again, the big difference, Craig, is that as well as hitting form at the right time, they've stopped conceding goals. And they aren't playing, I know you keep talking about it being new, but they're not playing quite as strictly at the back, which is, we all want to play out. But even if you look at City's Pep Guardiola's City team, they will take the moment where you've got to just clear it. And that is just starting to creep into Swansea now, the personal responsibility. They're improving at home. Barnsley have been absolutely abysmal on the road. Worst record, 7 points in 20 games and only won 1 game. Let in 37. Swansea have to win. And I think they'll keep another clean sheet. I'm going to go for, I'll go big, 3-0. Because I think if Swansea get the first in the first half, I could see Barnsley collapsing.
I don't think it'll be 3-0. I think Barnsley want to frustrate Swansea. I think there's 2 different styles of play. I could see Swansea going sideways because I think Barnsley would just have 9-10 players behind the ball. And then Barnsley might want to hit on a counter-attack. Swansea would have to work hard to break Barnsley down. So that's why I'm only going to go for a 1-0 victory for the Swans. Right, next up, 3 games to go. West Brom versus Blackpool. West Brom lost 3-1 at home to Stoke, and Blackpool drew 1-1 at Blackburn.
Yeah, Blackpool, solid performance. Always good bet for a 1-1 away from home, which might give you an indicator what I'm going to go for here. But
is it 1-1?
It might be. I haven't decided just yet. I'm stuck between 2 scores because West Brom defensively, I mean, some of the goals they conceded were just awful. And it came after 2 great home performances against Fulham and Bournemouth. And I don't know what it is. Is it complacency? Is it a lack of concentration? Is it just an off day? You can't say that because they've had so many this season, but it was terrible defensively. But Blackpool have only won 4 away games all season. They've drawn the majority, so I'm going to stick with 1-1.
I'm going 2-0 to Blackpool. I was always going to go 2-0 Blackpool. West Brom, season's done for them. Steve Bruce obviously needs a massive clear out. Yeah, it needs a major overhaul. They need the season to end badly. So that's why I'm going to have Blackpool to win by 2-0 because they still want to play. They've still got a bit of heart. 2 games to go. Huddersfield versus QPR, the John Smiths. Huddersfield beat Luton by 2-0. And another defeat for QPR, this time at Preston.
Yeah, and look, I know that when things aren't going for you, sometimes your luck runs out and They've lost another 2 players for the rest of the season. One of them, Rod Dick, who's probably been their best defender this season. They also then lost Kieran Westwood, their emergency signing goalkeeper, in the warm-up, and had a debutant in goal, their 6th choice goalkeeper based on the players they've had this season. It's remarkable, really, isn't it? You've got to give that some mitigation. But ultimately, they're in last chance saloon as well. They're now 6 points off the playoffs. They're playing against one of those contenders away in Huddersfield. They need to find a performance or at least a goal scoring spree from somewhere, because if they don't get 3 points out of this game, they will not be in the playoffs at the end of the year. Huddersfield are very strong at home, only lost 4 of their 20 games. And even as we saw in their last 2 matches against Luton and Hull, where they've not been at their fluent best, where they've not been able to break down opposition too often, they've had moments. They've got moments of quality in the team. The first goal they scored, yes, Luton switched off, but it was a very well taken finish. And they don't often, when they take the league, Huddersfield, look like losing the game. I know they had that wobble against West Brom with the awful penalty decision a month or so ago, but it's very rare you see Huddersfield lose a lead. They're very disciplined at the back once they've got that goal. I'm going to go for Huddersfield to win. Again, I think it'll be fairly tight. And I'm going to go for 2-1 again. And I know I'm doing that every game, but it seems to be QPR's favourite score too.
3-0 Huddersfield.
Wow.
Huddersfield had chances, yes, against Luton. They did sit back for a while. Luton got back into the game, but defensively they looked a bit strong. Luton was a bit clueless going forward, in my opinion. QPR just losing for fun. I still, I'm going to say it now, how the hell do they beat Luton a couple of months or so ago? I still don't know how they beat Luton, because that I said the wrongs on the wall. I did say they were the weakest of the top 6 at the time. Now they're down in 11th. Because they were 3rd at some point.
We had to get one prediction right, didn't we?
oh, at least I was right. And we did have QPR to be in the playoffs as well. Yes, they've spectacularly fallen. It's going to be another defeat for them. I'm going to go 3-0 Huddersfield. I really do believe that. Right, last game, Derby v Fulham. Derby lost 2-1 at Swansea, and Fulham lost 3-1 at Coventry. So not done and dusted yet for Fulham. They still need 6 points out of the remaining games. Derby, very angry they didn't get a penalty. Wayne Rooney was furious and called for the referee to be banned. So it's probably another referee decision that we're going to have to moan about.
Yeah, it was one of those weekends, wasn't it? Unfortunately, across the board. Derby, spirited, but how many times have we mentioned it? You can't give teams a 2-goal head start. You can't do that at championship level. And they've been poor away from home all season, only 2 wins. Fulham was shock of the weekend, wasn't it? At home to Coventry Sunday afternoon, and just fell apart out of nowhere. But they were both decent before that. Derby, again, we're into this situation where Derby have to win because they're now 9 points behind. I know they've got the better goal difference. And they are strong at home. They've lost 3 games out of 20 at home all season. It's a remarkable effort. But Fulham are the best away side in the league. They've actually been better away from home the last couple of games. Clean sheets and wins at Borough and QPR. And at 8 o'clock, obviously Sky thought this game was going to be very important when they picked it. And it's now actually not looking that crucial at all at either end. And that will be compounded by the fact that Fulham are going to nick this game, and it will mean Fulham are basically up and Derby are basically down. I'm going to go, not convincing, not big. I'm going to go 1-0, a Mitrovic special.
I'm going to go 2-1 to Fulham. Yeah, I think that was a wake-up call for Fulham. Say, hey, yeah, we've done your job yet. Maybe they thought it was cruising. Coventry hit them hard very early on, got 2 quick goals. Yes, Rodak could have done a lot better for the second goal, let's be brutally honest. But Coventry thoroughly deserved to win that game. And I think most Fulham fans will agree with that. Derby, yeah, they lost 2-1 again. It'll be a miracle for them to survive now. And the takeovers look like they're going to get done. So there's light at the end of the tunnel for Derby, but not in this game. They're going to lose by 2-1, in my opinion. Let's have a quick recap what we've predicted for Good Friday. And Daniel Cody doesn't think it's going to be a Good Friday for Luton and Barnsley. Sorry, they think they're going to get hammered 3-0. I don't think it's going to be a Good Friday for QPR. And a lot of 2-1s around the board as well. And those are predictions for Good Friday. Do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know in the comments section and give us your predictions. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Honest Football Free. And we'll see you Easter Monday.